In 3 days, we die. Xyloth's words reverberated through the grand lecture hall, silencing the excited murmurs of the diverse group of alien students gathered for their xenoanthropology class at the prestigious Galactic University. The wizened Arcturian professor activated a holographic star map, zooming in on an unremarkable yellow star near the Orion Arm. This is the Sol system, and this, he pointed to the third planet, is Earth, a death world unlike any other. We have no choice, Xyloth said gravely. In 3 days, you will infiltrate Earth, study the humans, find the source of their resilience. If you fail, the Zorgax will annihilate us all. As the Novus Orsa streaked through the void, its hull shimmering with the iridescent glow of faster-than-light travel, Taurus pored over the data streaming across his terminal. Earth's biosphere teemed with a staggering array of life, each species a testament to the relentless power of evolution in the face of unforgiving conditions. He marveled at the ingenuity and sheer tenacity of the human species, which had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through a combination of intellect, adaptability, and an unstoppable drive to survive. Zara, her lithe frame hunched over a microscope, meticulously cataloged samples of Earth's microorganisms. "The diversity is astounding," she murmured, her voice tinged with a mix of fascination and trepidation. "But the potential for cross-contamination is equally concerning. We must take every precaution to avoid introducing foreign pathogens into Earth's ecosystem." Taurus nodded, his gaze drifting to the view screen where Earth's cerulean orb swelled with each passing second. "And we must be equally cautious in our interactions with the humans. Their history is one of conflict and mistrust. We cannot afford to be seen as a threat." Far below, Robinson and his team fought their way through the undergrowth, the sound of gunfire and explosions echoing through the jungle. Tegan's forces were relentless, hounding them at every turn. Marcus, his face streaked with sweat and grime, lobbed a grenade at a cluster of enemy soldiers, buying them a precious few seconds of reprieve. "We're running out of time," Robinson panted, his eyes fixed on the sky. "The aliens could land at any moment. We have to reach them first." Robinson rounded on him, his eyes blazing. "Don't you see? This is our chance to level the playing field. If we can secure their technology, their knowledge, we can finally put an end to these wars. We can unite humanity against a common threat." The ship touched down in a clearing, its landing struts sinking into the rich, loamy soil. The hatch opened, and Taurus and his team emerged, their suits gleaming in the dappled sunlight that filtered through the canopy. Laia gasped in wonder, her empathetic senses drinking in the riot of life that surrounded them. Vero, ever the analyst, immediately began scanning the area, his suit's sensors probing the environment for any sign of danger. But even as the students took their first tentative steps on this alien world, unseen eyes watched from above. Zoltar, his face bathed in the eerie glow of his ship's monitors, smiled coldly as he watched the scene unfold. The humans were even more primitive than he had imagined, their weapons laughably crude compared to the might of the Zamorian war machine, and the students, so naive and idealistic, presented the perfect pretext for intervention. He turned to his lieutenants, his voice a low, menacing growl. "Prepare the fleet. We strike on my command." "Fascinating," she murmured, her sensors probing the rich loam beneath their feet. "The microbial diversity here is off the charts." A distant bird call echoed through the canopy, followed by an eerie silence. Taurus felt a prickle of unease. "Something's not right." The air erupted with the staccato rhythm of gunfire. Projectiles pinged off their suits' energy shields, leaving brief flares of light in their wake. Through the foliage, Taurus glimpsed human figures in camouflage, their weapons trained on the alien students. "Scatter!" Varro shouted, his analytical mind already assessing escape routes. "Back to the ship!" But it was too late. More humans emerged from hidden positions, cutting off their retreat. Taurus grabbed Zara's arm and plunged into the underbrush, their suits' enhanced strength allowing them to push through the dense vegetation. Behind them, Taurus heard the sounds of struggle as his classmates were overwhelmed. A gruff human voice carried over the chaos. "Secure that alien tech! Tegan wants it intact!" Taurus and Zara ran, their suits' sensors guiding them through the treacherous terrain. Roots threatened to trip them, while vines seemed to reach out and snag their limbs. The jungle grew denser, darker, as they put distance between themselves and their attackers. "We're too late," Marcus growled, kicking at a fallen branch. "They're already gone." Robinson scanned the area, noting the signs of recent conflict, scorch marks on trees, trampled vegetation, and, his eyes widened, pieces of advanced technology scattered on the ground. "Not entirely," he said, moving to examine a twisted piece of metal. It hummed faintly in his hand, its purpose a mystery. "We can still salvage something from this." Marcus frowned. "Is that wise? We don't know what this stuff does." Robinson met his second-in-command's gaze. "We don't have a choice. Whatever's happening here, it's bigger than our petty wars. We need every advantage we can get." As they gathered the alien artifacts, neither man noticed the faint blip on the horizon, the first wave of Zoltar's assault force descending through the atmosphere. Deep in the jungle's heart, Taurus and Zara stumbled into a clearing. Before them stood a collection of structures unlike anything they'd seen in their briefings on human civilization. Crude, yet ingenious, the buildings seemed to grow organically from the surrounding trees. A figure emerged from the largest structure, a slender human female with fierce eyes and a bearing that spoke of authority. She leveled a primitive projectile weapon at the aliens. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What are you doing in my territory?" Taurus raised his hand slowly, his suit's translator working to convey his words. "We mean no harm. We're students, here to learn." The woman's eyes narrowed, taking in their advanced suits. Students? With technology like that? Zara stepped forward cautiously. "We're from very far away. Please, we need help. We were attacked, separated from our group." In orbit, aboard the Novus Orsa, Captain Corv paced the bridge. "Still no word from the landing party?" His communications officer shook his head. "Nothing, sir, and we're detecting multiple launches from the planet's surface. Primitive missiles, but in significant numbers." Corv's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Prep a rescue team. Raxer, you're in command. Find our people and get them out." On the military installations and command centers across the globe, alarms began to blare. Radar operators stared in disbelief at their screens as unidentified objects appeared in low orbit, descending rapidly. In the heart of the jungle, surrounded by the sounds of an alien world, 4 disparate groups converged. Alien students seeking knowledge, human factions fighting for supremacy, a galactic power making its opening move, and a lone settlement caught in the crossfire. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, with none fully grasping the true scope of the conflict about to engulf them all. Taurus and Zara stumbled through the dense foliage, their exosuits whirring with each step. The jungle's cacophony of alien sounds enveloped them, a constant reminder of their isolation on this strange world. Suddenly, they burst into a clearing filled with structures that seemed to grow from the trees themselves. Arya emerged, weapon raised. "Stop right there!" Taurus froze, his translator working overtime. "We're not here to harm you. We're students, separated from our group." Arya's eyes narrowed, taking in their advanced suits. After a tense moment, she lowered her weapon. "I'm Arya. Welcome to our little slice of hell." She led them into the settlement, where 2 men awaited, one wiry and alert, the other built like a mountain. "Kai, Rahim." Arya nodded to each in turn. "Our new guests." Over the next days, Taurus and Zara underwent a brutal crash course in Earth survival. Kai taught them to move silently through the undergrowth, while Rahim demonstrated how to purify water tainted with parasites their alien biology had never encountered. "Your suits won't save you here," Arya said, tossing Taurus a crude spear. "Learn to use these, or die." Meanwhile, aboard a stealth shuttle, Raxor's team picked their way through the jungle. They found Laia and Varro huddled in the hollow of a massive tree, their suits scorched and dented. Varro's eyes gleamed with tenacity. "I can recalibrate our sensors to track the others' unique biosignatures." "Chemical attack!" Kai shouted. "Tegan's work, no doubt." Kai's face contorted with rage. "No, We fight back. He gathered a small team, disappearing into the mist. Hours later, they returned with prisoners. One man, muscular and scarred, met Arya's gaze without flinching. I'm Marcus, and you're all in danger. He spoke of an impending alien invasion, far more deadly than Taurus and Zara's peaceful mission. Arya's people and Marcus's team forged an uneasy alliance, united against this new threat. Kai slapped his hand away. They're not your personal armory. Before the argument could escalate, the sky lit up with fire. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing swaths of jungle. The Zamorian invasion had begun. Taurus and Zara huddled with their new human allies as the ground shook. Their exosuits, designed for research, offered little protection from the onslaught. A bolt of plasma seared the air inches from Taurus' face, leaving him temporarily blind. Zara stumbled, her suit's leg servos locking up. She looked up to see jaws lined with razor-sharp teeth descending toward her. In that moment, survival trumped all thoughts of scientific observation. Observation. In that split second, Marcus hurled himself at Zara, tackling her out of the beast's path. Its jaws snapped shut on empty air, and Marcus rolled to his feet, dragging Zara with him. Move, he shouted, shoving her toward the dubious safety of a nearby outcropping. Before they could reach it, the sky erupted in blinding light. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing swaths of jungle. The Zamorian invasion had begun in earnest. Taurus watched in horror as dropships descended through the atmosphere, disgorging swarms of battle robots and heavily armed troops. The fractured human factions, caught unprepared, scrambled for cover as plasma bolts seared the air. Defensive positions! Arya bellowed, her voice cutting through the chaos. Kai, take your team and flank them from the east! Taurus found himself shoulder to shoulder with Rahim, the mountain of a man wielding a crude but effective rocket launcher. Your suit, Rahim grunted between volleys. Can it interface with our comms? Taurus nodded, his fingers flying over the suit's controls. In moments, he had patched into the humans' communication network, coordinating their scattered forces against the overwhelming Zamorian assault. Through the din of battle, a familiar voice crackled over Taurus's newly established comm link. Taurus! Zara! Do you read? As if on cue, a fresh wave of Zamorian troops burst from the tree line, their energy weapons cutting down swaths of vegetation. But they were met with unexpected resistance as Raxor's Valoxian warriors emerged from the jungle, their combat skills honed by generations of interstellar conflict. For a moment it seemed the tide might turn. Raxor's team tore through the Zamorian ranks, their speed and precision a marvel to behold. But then the air shimmered with an oily mist, and the Valoxians began to falter. Biological weapon! Varro's voice rang out in warning. It's targeting Valoxian physiology. Taurus watched in horror as Raxor and his warriors collapsed, their bodies racked with convulsions. The Zamorians pressed their advantage, and the settlement's defenses began to crumble under the relentless assault. In that moment of desperation, an idea crystallized in Taurus's mind. He turned to Robinson, who was reloading his rifle behind a makeshift barricade. The dropship, Taurus said, pointing to a grounded Zamorian vessel. If we can take control of its weapons systems... Robinson's eyes widened with understanding. It's suicide, he said, then grinned fiercely. I'm in. Robinson cursed, his face hardening with persistence. All the more reason to stop them here and now. They reached the dropship's access hatch, and Taurus's suit made short work of the alien lock. As the door hissed open, they were met with a barrage of fire from the Zamorian crew inside. Robinson went low, his rifle chattering, while Kai lobbed a grenade into the ship's interior. The explosion rocked the dropship, and the strike team surged inside. What followed was a brutal close-quarters melee, human ingenuity and desperation pitted against Zamorian technology and training. Taurus found himself grappling with a Zamorian soldier, the alien's strength threatening to overwhelm him. But his exosuit's servos whined, matching the Zamorian's power. With a final surge of effort, Taurus slammed his opponent into a bulkhead, the impact leaving a sizable dent in the metal. The weapon systems, Robinson shouted, gesturing toward a sleek control panel. Can you interface with it? Taurus nodded, his fingers already dancing across the alien controls. His suit's computer worked furiously to decipher the Zamorian operating system. Lines of alien code scrolled across his HUD, slowly resolving into comprehensible patterns. Outside, the battle raged on. Arya's guerrilla fighters launched daring hit-and-run attacks, disrupting Zamorian supply lines and sowing chaos in their ranks. But it wasn't enough. The invaders' superior numbers and technology were slowly but surely overwhelming the defenders. Just as all seemed lost, Taurus cracked the final encryption. "I'm in," he shouted. "Weapons systems online." The dropship's energy cannons hummed to life, their barrels swiveling to target the Zamorian forces. Taurus's fingers flew over the controls, and lances of coherent light sliced through the invaders' ranks. Zamorian battle robots exploded in showers of sparks and molten metal. Their troops, caught in the open, were vaporized where they stood. For a moment, victory was within reach, but then alarms blared throughout the dropship, and a holographic display flickered to life. It showed a massive Zamorian warship in orbit, its weapon systems powering up for a full-scale bombardment. "They're going to glass the entire region," Robinson said, his voice tight with anger and fear. Taurus's mind raced, calculating trajectories and power outputs. "We might be able to use the dropship's shields to deflect some of the incoming fire," he said, "but we'd need to get everyone inside a very small area." Robinson nodded grimly. "It's our only shot." He keyed his comm unit. "All forces, fall back to the dropship. We have minutes, if that." As the scattered defenders began their desperate retreat, Taurus worked feverishly to reconfigure the dropship's shield emitters. Outside, the sky began to glow an ominous red as the Zamorian warship prepared to unleash its fury. Time seemed to slow as Robinson's team and the alien students faced an impossible choice: flee and almost certainly die, or make a final stand against overwhelming odds. The future of Earth hung in the balance, with mere moments left before the Zamorian onslaught would reduce everything to ash. Ash to molten glass. Robinson's eyes narrowed, his teeth gritted. "No, we stay and fight." "To hell with the odds," Arya interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. "This is our home. If we run now, there won't be anything left to come back to." Taurus's fingers flew over the dropship's controls. "I can use the weapon systems to create a gap in their defenses. It won't last long, but it might be enough to get everyone to safety." Robinson nodded. "Raxer, you lead the evacuation. Get our people to the underground bunker network. We'll hold them off as long as we can." The Veloxian warrior's eyes gleamed with fierce approval. "It will be done." As Raxer began organizing the retreat, Laia stumbled forward, her eyes unfocused. "Zara," she gasped, reaching out. I can feel your mind." "Now!" Taurus shouted, his fingers dancing across the alien controls. The dropship's weapons roared to life, carving a path through the Zamorian forces. Raxor bellowed the orders, and the ragtag group of human soldiers, guerrilla fighters, and alien students moved as one, sprinting through the gauntlet of enemy fire. At the rear, Laia and Zara stood motionless, their eyes closed in deep concentration. The air around them shimmered and warped. As the orbital strike bore down upon them, a shimmering dome of pure psionic energy sprang into existence, deflecting the devastating beams. Varro was at their side in an instant, his hands a blur as he crushed leaves and mixed compounds. "Hold on," he urged, pressing a foul-smelling paste to their faces. "This should counteract the worst of it." Kai's team met them head-on, the air filling with the staccato of gunfire and the meaty thud of hand-to-hand combat. "Go!" Kai shouted to Robinson. "We'll hold them off." An old man stepped forward, his weathered face etched with lines of wisdom and sorrow. "Welcome," he said, his voice resonating with quiet authority. "I am Ezra, and I believe we have much to discuss about saving your world." As Ezra spoke, the chamber's far wall slid open, revealing row upon row of alien weaponry. Weapons that looked nothing like the Zamorian tech, yet far beyond anything humans had developed. Robinson's eyes widened. What is all this? Above them, Zoltar's victory celebration was cut short, as ancient defense systems roared to life. The Zamorian commander stared in disbelief as his frontline forces were decimated by weapons he'd never seen before. Deep underground, Taurus and Ezra hunched over a console, their faces bathed in the eerie glow of holographic displays. This quantum gateway, Taurus mused, his alien features set in concentration. If we can use it to board Zoltar's flagship? Ezra nodded, his eyes gleaming with the fire of long-dormant hope. Then we might just have a chance to end this invasion once and for all. As they finalized their daring plan, the sounds of battle echoed from above. The counterattack had begun, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. Remember, Ezra said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation, we'll have mere moments of disorientation upon arrival. Use that time wisely. Taurus nodded, his alien features set with unbreakable spirit. He turned to address the strike team, a mix of human soldiers and alien students. Our target is the Scourge's command center. We move fast, we move silent, and we end this invasion. The world twisted, folded, and snapped back into focus. Taurus blinked, his senses overwhelmed by the sudden shift. They stood in a cavernous chamber, surrounded by thrumming power conduits and pulsing energy cores, the engineering deck of the Zamorian flagship. Secure the perimeter, Ezra shouted, his fingers flying over an alien terminal. I need time to access their systems. Robinson and his Marines moved with practiced efficiency, neutralizing the remaining Zamorian guards. Within minutes, the engineering deck fell silent, save for the low hum of machinery. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Varro coordinated a multi-pronged assault against the Zamorian frontline. Arya's guerrillas struck from the shadows, sowing chaos and confusion. Kai and Rahim led a thunderous charge and commandeered Zamorian tanks, their energy cannons cutting swaths through enemy positions. Robinson's voice crackled over the comm channel. All units, this is Base Camp Actual. We have confirmed targeting data on Zamorian defensive emplacements. Commencing artillery barrage. The ground trembled as ancient ballistic weapons roared to life, their hyper-velocity rounds punching through Zamorian energy shields easily. Aboard the Scourge, Zoltar paced the command deck, his crystalline carapace reflecting the frantic activity around him. How is this possible? He snarled. They're savages, primitives. A subordinate approached, mandibles quivering. Commander, our ground forces are in full retreat. They request immediate extraction. Zoltar's eyes narrowed. Very well. Initiate emergency protocols. Prepare for... Alarms blared throughout the ship. Zoltar whirled to face the main view screen, his alien features contorting in rage. What now? Sir, a technician reported, our warp drives are offline. We're trapped in orbit. As Zamorian troops streamed back aboard the crippled flagship, Taurus led his team through maintenance shafts and service corridors. They emerged onto the main deck, immediately caught in a crossfire between retreating Zamorian soldiers and the ship's security forces. Push through, Taurus shouted, his suit's energy shield flaring as it deflected incoming fire. We need to reach the command center. Ezra hung back, interfacing with ship systems at every opportunity. With each passing moment, more of the Scourge's defenses fell silent. Zara and Laia moved in perfect synchronization, their newfound psychic abilities wreaking havoc on Zamorian sensors and communication networks. Laia's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she seized control of the ship's comms array. Her voice, amplified and broadcast across every frequency, rang out. People of Earth, the tide has turned. The Zamorian flagship is crippled, their forces in retreat. Stand together now, and victory will be ours. Zoltar, his composure cracking, made a fateful decision. Release the Arcturian nerve toxin, he commanded. If we cannot have this world, neither shall they. As they neared the bridge, Zoltar's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. So the primitives have teeth after all. Come then, Taurus. Come and claim your prize once if you dare. The bridge doors hissed open, revealing Zoltar flanked by his elite guard. The Zamorian commander's eyes blazed with a mix of fury and grudging respect. You fought well, Zoltar said, his voice carrying an almost admiring tone. But it ends here. Take command, Taurus. Prove your worth as a true warrior. Taurus stepped forward, his exosuit servos whining with each movement. This isn't about proving worth, Zoltar. It's about protecting our home. As the two leaders prepared to clash, Zara's voice cut through Taurus's mind. Wait, I can sense his weakness, his pride. It's consuming him. Laya joined her psychic sister, their combined power reaching out to touch Zoltar's mind. In an instant, the Zamorian commander was assaulted by visions of Earth's defenders, their courage, their sacrifice, their unbreakable spirit. Zoltar staggered, overwhelmed by the torrent of emotion. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep distress in his species. I never knew, he whispered. Such nobility in the face of certain doom. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Zoltar straightened, his alien features unreadable. He turned to his communications officer, his voice carrying the weight of a monumental decision. Send the order, Zoltar commanded. All Zamorian forces are to withdraw immediately. We are done here. As the alien armada began its retreat from Earth's orbit, Taurus and his team emerged from the crippled flagship. They were greeted by a surge of human and alien allies, their faces etched with a mix of exhaustion and elation. The battle was won, but as Taurus surveyed the devastated landscape, he knew that the real work was just beginning. Earth had prevailed, but at what cost? And what new challenges would arise in the wake of this hard-fought victory? The acrid smell of burning wreckage filled the air as Taurus surveyed the devastated landscape. Earth had prevailed, but at a terrible cost. Skeletal buildings jutted from the rubble like broken teeth, and the sky remained hazy with smoke and dust. We need to get everyone to safety, Robinson said, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. There's a secure military base not far from here. We can regroup and tend to the wounded. At the military base, a flurry of activity greeted them. Human soldiers and alien students worked side by side, setting up makeshift medical stations and securing the perimeter. Taurus watched as Vero moved from patient to patient, his hands a blur as he mixed healing compounds. Your friend has quite the gift, Ezra remarked, nodding towards Vero. But there's so much more we could teach him, teach all of you. You can't hold me here, Tegan snarled, his eyes wild with rage. This is our world, not theirs. Robinson stepped forward, his face a mask of cold fury. Lock him up. We'll deal with him later. The students leaned in, their eyes wide with wonder, as complex equations and diagrams flickered before them. Zara's tentacles quivered with excitement. This is incredible, she breathed. The applications for interstellar travel alone. A loud beep interrupted their hushed conversation. Taurus activated his communicator, and Captain Korv's stern face materialized. Taurus, what in the name of the Galactic Federation is going on down there? You were supposed to observe, not get involved in a planetary war. Enough, Korv cut him off. You violated every protocol we have. I'm ordering you and the other students to return to the ship immediately. This mission is over. Taurus felt a surge of defiance. He looked around at his fellow students, at the humans who had fought alongside them, at Ezra, whose ancient knowledge could revolutionize their understanding of the universe. No, he said firmly, we're not leaving. As the argument with Korv raged on, Varro approached Taurus with a glimmer in his eye. I have an idea, he said, his voice low and urgent. A way we can continue our mission and gather the data we need. Taurus listened intently as Varro outlined his plan. Split into teams, each exploring a different region of Earth. Document the challenges, the ecosystems, the remnants of human civilization. It was risky, but it might be their only chance to complete their mission and help the people of Earth. As dawn broke, Taurus stood before the assembled students and their human allies. We have a choice to make, he began. We can leave now, or we can stay and face the unknown. It won't be easy. There are dangers we can't even imagine. But the knowledge we gain could change everything. For Earth, for our own worlds, for the entire galaxy. As they began dividing into teams, a soldier burst into the room. Sir, he shouted, addressing Robinson, Tegan's escaped. He's gone, and he's taken some of our best weapons with him. Robinson's face darkened. Gather a search party. We need to... No, Taurus interrupted. We can't delay our mission. Tegan is just one more variable we'll have to account for out there. The teams dispersed across Earth's ravaged landscape, each facing unique challenges in their quest for knowledge and survival. "We need shelter," Raxor shouted over the howling gale. "Our suits can't handle these temperatures." They stumbled upon a half-buried structure, its metal walls barely visible beneath years of ice accumulation. Zan, Raxor's engineer, worked feverishly to bypass the frozen door controls. With a groan, the airlock slid open, revealing a dark interior. A crash echoed from deeper within the facility. The team froze, weapons raised. "Who's there?" Raxor called out. Silence, then footsteps. A group of haggard humans emerged from the shadows, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. Meanwhile, in the scorching desert, Kai's expedition faced a different kind of hell. The sun beat down mercilessly as they traversed endless dunes. A whistle cut through the air. Before Kai could react, nets ensnared two of his team members. Figures rose from the sand like ghosts, their bodies wrapped in heat-reflecting cloth. "Nomads," Kai breathed, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We mean no harm." The nomads' leader stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "Your kind brought ruin to our world. Why should we trust you now?" The leader considered for a moment, then nodded. "Show us what you offer, alien. If it proves useful, we may yet reach an agreement." In the blasted wasteland of old wars, Taurus led his team through a maze of crumbling buildings. Geiger counters clicked ominously, warning of lingering radiation. A scream pierced the air. Taurus whirled to see Zara being dragged away by grotesque figures, humans warped by generations of radiation exposure. "Zara!" Taurus shouted, but the mutants vanished into the ruins with their prize. Taurus activated his comm. "Robinson, I need intel. Any idea where they might have taken her?" Static crackled, then an unfamiliar voice responded. "Robinson can't come to the phone right now, but if you want your human friend back, you'll turn yourself and your alien pals in. You've got 1 hour." Back at the military base, Marcus pored over intercepted communications. His eyes widened as he decrypted a particularly damning message. "Ezra, you sly bastard," he muttered. The old man had been playing both sides, prolonging the conflict to position himself as Earth's savior, an ultimate ruler. Marcus rushed to warn Robinson, only to find the command center in chaos. Soldiers whispered urgently, their faces pale with shock. "What happened?" Marcus demanded. High above Earth's atmosphere, Captain Corv stared at the encrypted message on his screen. The directive was clear: abort the mission, leave the students behind if necessary. Across the fractured remains of human civilization, the alien students found themselves thrust into roles they never anticipated. No longer observers, they had become active participants in Earth's struggle for survival, and perhaps its last hope for peace. Taurus, his mind racing with plans to rescue Zara and deal with Tegan's threat, knew that their original mission had irrevocably changed. The question now was not just how to survive, but how to unite a shattered world before it destroyed itself completely. Taurus's communicator crackled to life, interrupting his strategizing. "Taurus, this is Captain Corv. I've made a decision. We're staying." Taurus outlined his strategy to negotiate with Tegan. Corv listened intently, his mandibles clicking in thought. "It's risky, but it might work. I'll provide covert support with the Novus Orsa's tractor beams. Be ready to move on my signal." Tegan emerged from the shadows, dragging a bound and gagged Robinson. The human warlord's eyes glittered with suspicion and greed. "Show me what you've brought, alien," he snarled. Taurus activated the scanner, projecting a holographic map of the surrounding area. Glowing veins of minerals pulsed beneath the Earth's surface. Tegan's eyes widened. Tegan's fingers twitched towards the scanner. "And why should I trust you?" Before Taurus could respond, Zara's tentacles quivered. "Energy spike," she hissed. "Something's wrong." The air filled with a high-pitched whine. Figures in environmental suits burst from concealed positions, led by a wild-eyed human with a scarred face. "Death to the alien scourge!" the leader screamed, hurling a canister. The canister exploded, releasing a sickly green mist. Taurus's exosuit sensors blared warnings, as the pathogen began eating through its protective layers. "Laia!" Taurus shouted. "Containment!" The Scion's eyes glowed as she thrust her hands outward. A shimmering dome of psionic energy encased the uninfected, barely holding back the virulent cloud. Outside the barrier, chaos reigned. Infected humans writhed on the ground, their bodies twisting into grotesque new forms. Tegan's men fired wildly at the attackers, while Robinson struggled against his bonds. "Working on it," Varro replied, his voice strained. "But I need a sample of the pathogen's source." Raxor's gruff voice cut in. "Leave that to us. Veloxian strike team, move out." "We need to fortify this position," Taurus ordered. "Zara, set up a perimeter. Everyone else, gather whatever weapons and supplies you can find." They worked feverishly, barricading entrances and distributing the few functioning weapons. Outside, the infected's mutations accelerated. Misshapen limbs clawed at the psionic barrier, leaving trails of corrosive slime. Taurus's mind raced. They needed more time, more resources, a way to neutralize the pathogen before it consumed everything. His communicator beeped. It was Kai, his voice urgent. "Taurus, we've detected a massive biohazard spreading across the planet. We're gearing up and heading your way with supplies." The psionic barrier pulsed, stretching thin as a soap bubble. Beyond it, a sea of writhing, mutated forms pressed closer. Taurus gripped his weapon, knowing the real fight for Earth's survival was only beginning. A massive transport roared overhead, kicking up dust and debris. It touched down with a thunderous impact, its cargo bay doors already opening. Kai leapt out, followed by his team hauling crates of supplies. Taurus caught it, his mind racing. "Zara, coordinate distribution. Tegan, we need cover fire." The human warlord nodded grimly, barking orders to his troops. They formed a ragged perimeter, weapons trained on the advancing mutants. Taurus and Zara worked frantically, loading the treatment into dispersal devices. The air filled with a fine mist as they activated the canisters, praying it would work in time. "Taurus!" Captain Korv's voice cut through the chaos. "We're initiating emergency extraction. Get your people ready for beam out." "I need more data," he muttered. "Laia, can you link with the subjects? We need to understand how this thing works at a cellular level." On the consoles, Earth's surface was a patchwork of chaos. Robinson's voice came through, tinged with desperation. "The coalition's falling apart. Tagan and others are pulling out, trying to fortify against the mutant threat. But they're just spreading the infection further." Ezra's face appeared on another screen, his expression grim. "I may have a solution, an old weapon, electromagnetic pulse generators, strong enough to fry the virus across wide areas. But it would devastate our infrastructure, set us back decades, maybe centuries. There might be another way. It's risky, but it could save both your people and your technology." He outlined his plan, watching the faces around him shift from shock to cautious hope. Objections erupted from the other alien students. Taurus raised his hands, silencing them. "I know the risks, but Ezra's pulse device is our backup. If this fails, we reset human civilization to save the species." As preparations began, Taurus gazed out at the planet below. The mission had changed beyond recognition, but one thing was clear. Humanity's place in the galaxy would never be the same after this. Within hours, reports flooded in. Humans exhibiting flu-like symptoms crowded hospitals and clinics. Panic rippled through communities as rumors of a new plague spread faster than the pathogen itself. "It's working," Varro announced, his eyes fixed on holographic displays of human cellular activity. "Their immune systems are responding exactly as predicted." In the Arctic, Raxor's team huddled in a makeshift shelter, the winds howling outside. Massive, twisted forms lumbered past, their roars shaking the very ice beneath them. "We can't hold out much longer," one of the human scientists whispered, her face pale with fear. Raxor grunted, checking the charge on his weapon. "We don't need to. Look." Halfway across the world, Kai stood before a gathering of desert tribe leaders. Their faces were etched with suspicion and awe-inspiring hostility. "Your people brought this plague upon us," an elder spat. "Why should we trust you now?" The tribes deliberated, their heated discussions carrying on the hot desert wind. Finally, the elder nodded. We will aid you, but know this. If you betray us, the desert itself will rise against you. Sir, one ventured, the latest bioscans? As immunity spread, so did hope. Taurus and Zara worked alongside human scientists, refining the countermeasures and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. In a sterile lab, Laia placed her hands on the temples of a severely mutated human. Her eyes glowed as she established a psionic link. I can see the original genetic structure, she murmured. It's still there, buried beneath the mutations. Hours later, the mutant's twisted form began to shift. Bones cracked and realigned. Skin smoothed and regained its natural hue. When it was over, a human man lay on the table, unconscious but unmistakably restored. We're under attack. Haxon's fanatics. They've hit our supply convoy. We need backup now. Taurus's mind raced. They were so close to achieving global immunity, but time was running out. As he mobilized a response team, he knew the real fight for Earth's future was nowhere near the end. Taurus gripped the controls of the commandeered gunship, diving through a hail of laser fire. Kai's voice crackled over the comm, strained and desperate. Kai emerged from behind a scorched vehicle, her face smeared with grime and blood. We lost half the team, she reported grimly. If you hadn't shown up when you did... Taurus nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. We're not out of this yet. Haxon's gone completely mad. Our comms are being jammed, Zara announced, her tentacles dancing over control panels. It's not just interference. This is a coordinated cyber attack. Robinson's fists clenched. Haxon, he's using our own automated defenses against us. The human coalition leader's eyes narrowed. Then it's time we end this. Taurus! Taurus nodded grimly. We'll rendezvous at these coordinates. Taurus out. Hours later, a motley strike force assembled outside a nondescript hillside. Tegan's men, their faces set in dogged determination, checked their weapons. Ezra huddled with Zara and Laia, going over the schematics of the bunker's defenses. The outer perimeter is lined with automated turrets, Ezra explained. But if we can get Laia close enough, she might be able to psionically overload their targeting systems. The assault began with a thunderous barrage from Tegan's artillery. As the hillside erupted in flame and shrapnel, Laia stepped forward, her eyes glowing with psionic energy. The perimeter defenses sputtered and died, leaving a clear path to the bunker's entrance. Inside, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as the strike team fought their way through twisting corridors. Zara and Laia peeled off, racing towards the central control room. Haxon stood at the center, his wild eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. You're too late, he snarled. I've already won. A massive view screen flickered to life, showing an orbital platform. Haxon's fingers danced over a control panel. One push of this button, and my kinetic kill vehicle turns your precious alien ship into space dust. Robinson's gun snapped up, but Taurus held out a restraining hand. You've lost, Haxon, the alien said calmly. Your virus, your drones. We're shutting it all down as we speak. Haxon's face contorted with rage. He lunged for the control panel, but before he could reach it, the entire system went dark. Varro's face appeared on the main screen. I believe the phrase is checkmate, the alien scientist said with a hint of smugness. Your KKV is now under our control. As Haxon collapsed in defeat, Robinson turned to Taurus. It's over, he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and relief. Begins. Taurus turned to face the assembled team. Our immediate priority is stabilizing the global situation. Fascinating, he muttered, manipulating a 3D model of a precursor device. The quantum entanglement properties alone could revolutionize communication systems. Taurus entered the lab, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. How's the cataloging coming along? Varro's eyes gleamed with excitement. We've barely scratched the surface of Ezra's cache. The potential applications are staggering. The alien captain nodded, then cleared his throat. I have a proposal. We need a secure location to continue our research, away from the political powder keg down there. He gestured towards the view screen showing Earth's scarred surface. I'm thinking lunar outpost. Hours later, Taurus stood before Robinson and the coalition leaders. He outlined his plan, emphasizing the benefits of an off-world research facility. We'll use nano-forging systems for construction, and we're prepared to share the outpost manufacturing capabilities to aid in rebuilding Earth's infrastructure. The human's eyes narrowed, but he gave a curt nod. Fine, but I want oversight on every stage of construction. As the coalition approved the plan, Taurus felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could forge a lasting peace after all. These lava tube networks are perfect, the alien rumbled, gesturing to a 3D map. Natural radiation shielding, thermal stability. We can house entire research complexes down there. On Earth, Varro and Laia led a team of human scientists through the intricacies of precursor technology. The air crackled with intellectual energy as minds from two worlds collaborated. The screen filled with satellite imagery. Dark tendrils spread across continents, devouring everything in their path. Varro's eyes widened in horror. It's a nanoswarm, he breathed. Self-replicating machines. They must have hitched a ride on the Zamorian ships. Alarms blared throughout the facility as reports flooded in. The nanoswarm was spreading exponentially, consuming vital resources. Taurus's mind raced, calculating their options. Negative. The swarm has already reached key mining hubs. If it breaches the lunar facilities... Varro finished the thought. The raw materials stockpiled there could trigger an uncontrolled replication event. It would consume the entire moon. Taurus listened as Ezra explained the protocol's devastating effects. His heart sank as he realized the impossible choice before them. So we either trigger a global extinction event, he said slowly, or we allow the nanoswarm to consume everything. Taurus's gaze shifted from the view screen to the faces around him. We need to convene an emergency council. Now. Within minutes, Robinson, Tegan, and Captain Corv gathered in the command center. Ezra stood before them, his expression grim as he detailed the Prometheus protocol. A heavy silence fell over the room. Robinson's face paled. My God! Taurus's mind raced. Our first priority must be evacuating the lunar outpost. If those resources fall to the swarm, we lose everything. Captain Corv nodded sharply. I'll mobilize the Novus Orsa and every auxiliary craft we have. We can begin ferrying personnel and critical technology immediately. As Corv left to coordinate the evacuation, a transmission came through from Raxor. The alien's deep voice rumbled with urgency. We've salvaged precursor gateway drives from the Arctic expedition. Sending them your way, they should significantly boost our evacuation efforts. On the console, dark tendrils of the nanoswarm spread across continents with terrifying speed. Robinson's fists tight. We need to initiate a strategic retreat from population centers. Buy us time. Tegan scowled but nodded reluctantly. I'll leverage my resources to reinforce temporary quarantine perimeters, but don't expect miracles. As plans were set in motion, Kai's face appeared on a secondary screen. My Desert Alliance is mobilizing. We've got experience surviving on the move. We'll help coordinate civilian evacuations. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The Novus Orsa's holds filled with refugees and vital equipment. On Earth's surface, fire bases marked the last lines of defense against the advancing swarm. Varro burst into the command center, his antenna twitching with excitement. I've detected a flaw in the nanoswarm's composition, he announced. They remain inert to precursor alloys, something about the quantum-shielded properties. Taurus nodded, considering. For those we evacuate, we can construct artificial arcologies in lunar orbit, but our life support supplies are limited. Zara and Laia exchanged glances. We'll explore options for genetically adapting humans to the lunar environment, Zara offered. It may be our best chance for long-term survival. On Earth's ravaged surface, construction began on towering dome citadels, forged from precursor alloys. Tegan's forces seized isolated resource stockpiles, while Robinson's coalition grew with the addition of allied tribes brokered by Kai. As the nanoswarm consumed more territory, pockets of human resistance winked out one by one. In the chaos, a familiar threat resurfaced. Haxon's radicals launched a series of devastating attacks on the fragile coalition. Taurus and Kai found themselves racing against time, tracking Haxon to a hidden base. They fought through layers of fanatical defenders, only to find the madman poised to unleash an unshielded neutron warhead. "This ends now!" Haxon screamed, his finger hovering over the detonator. Kai's rifle cracked, and Haxon crumpled. The warhead's countdown froze with seconds to spare. In the command center, Ezra's hands hovered over the controls that would initiate the Prometheus protocol. The students gathered on the moon, their faces somber as they prepared to bear witness. Taurus looked out at the assembled crowd, then back to the view screen showing Earth's scarred surface. He took a deep breath, knowing the weight of two worlds rested on the decision before them. Ezra's fingers danced across the control panel. On the console, ominous clouds of fluorine compounds began to swirl across Earth's atmosphere. The gathered students watched in stunned silence as their adopted homeworld was engulfed. In the lunar outpost docking bay, Robinson oversaw the transfer of shell-shocked humans into hastily constructed arcology habitats. Children clung to parents, eyes wide with fear and incomprehension. Taurus nodded. "Good work! Be on guard for—" His words were cut off by Tegan's face appearing on a secondary screen. The human's eyes glittered with barely concealed triumph. "Just wanted to inform you that I've claimed a gateway of my own. My people will be quite comfortable here, away from coalition oversight." Before Taurus could respond, Varro burst into the command center. "The nanoswarm! It's evolving faster than we anticipated. The Prometheus effect won't hold it back for long." On the main view screen, pillars of writhing, gray nanomachines stretched skyward from Earth's surface. Taurus felt his heart sink. "Laia, wait!" Taurus called, but the transmission cut off. Taurus's mind raced. "Assemble a retrieval team. We can't risk—" The command center doors hissed open. Robinson strode in, his face set with commitment. "Hold that order, Captain. If there's even a chance Laia could find a solution—" "You can't be serious," Taurus growled. "The risk is too great." Ezra's eyes widened in horror. "No, this is how it started for the precursors, the same path that led to their downfall." Robinson's shoulders sagged with visible relief. "Thank you," he said quietly. As Kai rushed to comply, the view screen flickered. Tegan's face appeared, eyes narrowed. "A risky gambit, alien, but I'll hold my forces for now." "You need to see this," he said, activating a video feed. The screen filled with the interior of a vast chamber, its walls pulsing with ethereal light. Laia stood before a shimmering holographic display, her fingers dancing across glowing symbols. Ezra leaned forward, his eyes widening as he absorbed the data streaming across secondary screens. "Incredible," he murmured. "They developed a countermeasure, DNA-encoded molecular machines." "Varro, no!" Taurus protested, but the Syrian's mind was made up. "My physiology is compatible," Varro said. "It's our best chance." The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Raxor's forces established a perimeter around the vault, while Varro underwent the grueling cellular resequencing process. When he emerged, encased in a gleaming, nano-augmented carapace, a hush fell over the assembled team. On Earth's ravaged surface, Varro strode forth. Where his nano-enhanced limbs touched the writhing sea of gray, the nanoswarm recoiled and dissolved, but their victory was short-lived. The swarm adapted with terrifying speed, surging back in mutated forms. Raxor's voice boomed over the comms as phasic artillery lit up the sky. "Fall back! We'll cover you!" In orbit, Robinson's face was grim as he watched feeds from the beleaguered lunar arcologies. "They're pressing us on all fronts," he reported. "We can't hold out much longer." A new threat emerged as Zoltar's Zamorian ships decloaked, weapons blazing. Tegan's growl filled the command center. "Those backstabbing Xenos are trying to claim the swarm for themselves." "We need to buy Varro more time," Taurus said, his mind racing. He turned to Tegan. "Your forces, combined with Robinson's, can you hold off Zoltar?" Tegan's eyes narrowed, then he gave a curt nod. "For now, we have a common enemy." As battle raged across Earth and lunar orbit, Varro pressed on. His nano-enhanced form glowed with crackling energy as he tore through the swarm's defenses. But with each victory, the toll on his systems grew. Varro's bioforge reserves are depleting, Laya reported, her voice strained. We need another solution, fast. Zara nodded, her face set with commitment. As Laya began the integration process, Taurus watched the feeds from Earth's surface. Varro stood at the heart of the nanoswarm's core nexus, his form pulsing with energy as he engaged in microscopic combat. Hold on, old friend, Taurus whispered. Just a little longer. The air crackled with tension as Zara's mind merged with the nanotech payload. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she channeled the countermeasures into a rapidly expanding biome. As the light faded, silence fell over the command center. Then, emerging from the dissipating swarm, a figure stumbled forward. Varro, changed beyond recognition, but alive. Taurus exhaled, allowing himself a moment of hope. But as reports flooded in of Zamorian ships regrouping, he knew their trials were far from finished. Status report, he barked. Taurus nodded grimly. And the lunar arcologies? At capacity, Robinson replied. We're cramming people in, but life support systems are straining. We need a more permanent solution. As if on cue, the doors hissed open. Varro stumbled in, his form still pulsing with residual energy from the bioforge. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the transformed Syrian. I'm ready to serve, Varro said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. We don't have time for ethics, Tegan's gruff voice cut in. The human's face appeared on a nearby screen, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed ambition. My forces have secured additional precursor gateways. We're prepared to begin our own relocation efforts. Alarms blared, cutting off further debate. Kai's voice crackled over the comms. Multiple Zamorian ships decloaking in lunar orbit. Before anyone could respond, the command center's systems began to flicker and fail. Ezra's fingers flew across his console. We're being hit with some kind of virus. It's tearing through our defenses. The air grew thin as life support systems faltered. Robinson shouted over the chaos. Initiate emergency compression seals. But Taurus's eyes widened in horrified realization. Wait, there's a Trojan in the compression sequence. If we... His words were cut off as the outpost shuddered violently. Warning klaxons screamed as hull integrity alarms flashed red across every display. Taurus's mind raced, calculating odds and outcomes at lightning speed. The command center shuddered around him, life support systems failing as Zoltar's virus tore through their defenses. He locked eyes with Kai, both knowing what had to be done. Reroute all power to the Novus Orsa, Taurus ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. We're sealing her inside. Robinson's head snapped up. Captain, that's suicide! It's our only chance, Taurus countered. Kai, initiate emergency protocols. Robinson, begin triage. We need to prioritize who gets access to the remaining life support. We need to reach the reactor control room, Raxor shouted over the blaring alarms. If we can reroute outputs, we might be able to stabilize pressure around the Novus Orsa. They fought their way through malfunctioning airlocks and sparking conduits. Taurus's lungs burned as the air grew thinner. Finally, they reached the reactor core. Raxor's fingers flew across the controls, rerouting power and venting atmosphere in precise bursts. The outpost groaned around them, but slowly the violent shuddering began to subside. It's working, Raxor exclaimed. We've bought ourselves some time. Back in the command center, Kai and Ezra worked frantically to restart the arcology network. As systems came back online, Ezra's face paled. No, he muttered. The virus, it's not just corruption. It's overriding key memory sectors. On the main view screen, habitation rings began to shatter, consumed by destructive feedback loops. Ezra's hands trembled as realization dawned. Taurus surveyed the unfolding catastrophe, his mind racing for solutions. His gaze fell on Laya and Zara, their eyes wide with fear. Your psionic abilities, he said urgently. Can you generate a dampening field? Disrupt the resonance patterns? Laya nodded, her face set with tenacity. We can try. The two women joined hands, their eyes glazing over as they synchronized their minds. A faint shimmer filled the air as their combined psionic energy expanded outward. A proximity alert blared. On the tactical display, a massive Zamorian fleet decloaked, weapons charged. Tegan's face appeared on a secondary screen, his expression grim. "Taurus, my militia has aligned with Zoltar," he announced. "Stand down now or we'll reduce that outpost to atoms." "We can't hold them," he shouted, falling back to the central nexus. As Raxor's team retreated, they found Vero waiting for them. The transformed Syrian's body pulsed with energy, creating a shimmering barrier around the huddled coalition civilians. Robinson nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "And you?" As Taurus assembled his strike team, Robinson began coordinating their final stand. Outside, Zoltar's forces closed in, unaware of the daring plan about to unfold. The precursor gateway hummed to life, its ancient energies crackling as Taurus and his strike team stepped through. In an instant, they materialized on the bridge of the Scourge, Zoltar's flagship. Alarms blared as Zamorian crew members scrambled to react to the sudden intrusion. "Weapons free!" Taurus shouted, his voice drowned out by the sudden eruption of plasma fire. The strike team fanned out, taking cover behind control consoles and structural pillars. Raxor's Veloxian warriors moved with inhuman speed, their blade arms slicing through Zamorian defenses. On the lunar surface, Robinson's voice crackled over the comm system. "Outpost integrity at 30% and falling? We can't hold out much longer." Varro's transformed body pulsed with energy as he extended a shimmering bioforged shell around the remaining outpost sections. Inside, terrified civilians huddled together as the ground shook from orbital bombardments. The sky above lit up as Tegan's militia ships descended, adding to the chaos. His gruff voice filled the command channels. "Those resources are ours for the taking. Anyone who stands in our way will be eliminated." Back on the Scourge, Taurus pushed forward through a hail of enemy fire. A Zamorian energy blast caught him in the side, searing through his armor. He stumbled, vision blurring from the pain. "Captain's hit!" Raxor shouted, covering Taurus as he struggled to his feet. They fought their way through twisting corridors, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Finally, they reached the bridge's massive doors. "Breach charges now!" Taurus ordered. The doors exploded inward, and the strike team surged through the opening. But as the smoke cleared, they saw Zoltar standing before a shimmering interdimensional portal. "Better luck next time, Taurus." With that, he stepped through, the portal collapsing behind him. Taurus hit his fist against a nearby console. "Damn it! We were so close!" "Do it," Taurus replied without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." As Laia worked to open the cosmic gateway, Robinson's forces fought a losing battle on the lunar surface. Varro's bioforged shell flickered under the relentless assault of Tegan's orbital strikes. "They're trying to breach the gateway," Kai shouted, her fingers flying over tactical displays. "If Tegan gets control of this technology—" She didn't need to finish the thought. With steadfast perseverance, Kai initiated a complex sabotage sequence, narrowing the gateway's path to a fraction of its intended size. The outpost shuddered as another volley of railgun fire impacted nearby. Robinson's voice rang out over the chaos. "All coalition forces, this is a full evacuation order. Proceed to the gateway immediately." As panicked crowds surged toward the shimmering portal, Taurus and his battered strike team emerged from a nearby precursor node. They rushed to assist with the evacuation, herding shell-shocked civilians through the cosmic rift. Varro's eyes met Robinson's across the command center. No words were needed. They both understood the sacrifice that had to be made. With Ezra at their side, they took up positions around the gateway's exit, forming a living wall against any who would try to force their way through. "Go," Robinson said firmly. "They need you on the other side." With a final nod, Taurus stepped through. The gateway pulsed, its energy fluctuating wildly. Varro, his body still thrumming with bioforge power, placed his hands on the portal's frame. Robinson nodded grimly. "Then we do what we must." Robinson's heart made. "Then we make every second count. Varro, can you extend that bioforge shell?" Varro nodded, his transformed body pulsing with energy. The shimmering field expanded, enveloping the trio in a protective cocoon. Outside, Zamorian troops pounded against the barrier, their energy weapons leaving scorch marks on its surface. "It won't hold forever," Varro warned, strain evident in his voice. "It doesn't need to," Robinson replied. His eyes scanned the room, locking onto a half-hidden access panel. "There, our ticket out of here." They moved swiftly, Robinson and Ezra working to pry open the panel while Varro maintained the shield. As the metal gave way, they found themselves staring at an antiquated precursor gateway, its circuitry dim but intact. Ezra's eyes widened. "It's offline, but yes, I think I can get it running." A deafening explosion rocked the outpost. Through a gaping hole in the wall, they saw Zoltar's flagship looming ominously in the lunar sky. "I've found something," Varro announced, his voice taking on an otherworldly timbre. "Star maps, coordinates to somewhere far beyond known space." "Lock it in," Robinson ordered. "Wherever it is, it's our only shot." Ezra nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he input the new coordinates. The gateway hummed to life, its aperture filling with swirling energy. "It's unstable," Ezra warned. "The wormhole won't last long." Robinson met Varro's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. "You go first. Your Bioforge abilities give us the best chance of establishing a foothold." Varro hesitated but nodded. He stepped toward the gateway, his body already beginning to shift and adapt. Varro absorbed the data, his form rippling. With a final nod to his companions, he plunged into the swirling vortex. "Ready the self-destruct," he said grimly. "We can't let Zoltar follow us." "It's done," Ezra announced. "But sir, the gateway—" "Go," Robinson commanded, pushing Ezra toward the portal. "I'll be right behind you." Zoltar's voice rang out. "You've lost, human. Surrender, and I may yet show mercy." Robinson's lips curled into a defiant smile. "Not today, you bastard." He hit the button and leapt backward into the swirling vortex. The world erupted into blinding light and searing heat. Then, darkness. Varro materialized on an alien world, his body reconfiguring to process the harsh atmosphere. The gateway behind him sputtered and died, leaving him stranded on a windswept plain of red rock and twisting metal formations. As his senses adjusted, Varro detected faint energy signatures, echoes of Robinson and Ezra, their consciousness fragmented but present within his Bioforge matrix. He extended tendrils into the alien soil, beginning the process of terraforming a small patch of ground. "Hold on," he murmured to his incorporated companions. "We start again. Here." In the distance, strange lights flickered on the horizon. Varro's sensors registered artificial structures, hints of an unknown civilization. He paused in his work, considering the implications. Perhaps they were not as alone as they had feared. A year passed, then 5, then 50. The harsh plains of New Crucible, as Varro had christened their sanctuary, slowly transformed. Domed habitats rose from the red rock, interconnected by shimmering energy conduits. Within these protective shells, the first generation of human colonists took their tentative steps. In the colony's central hub, Varro stood before a holographic display, studying the latest survey data. A young man approached, his skin shimmering with subtle bioluminescence, a trait that had emerged in recent years. Varro's form rippled, absorbing the news. "Show me, Brant." The display flickered, revealing grainy footage of another human settlement. But something was different. The structures were sleeker, more angular, and the inhabitants moved with an uncanny fluidity. "They call themselves the Machinari," Brant explained. "Or rather, that's what their benefactors are called." Varro's sensors pulsed, analyzing the data. "Another gateway, another path taken." In a private meeting chamber, a Machinari envoy faced Varro and Brant. The envoy's eyes gleamed with cybernetic enhancements, his voice carrying a metallic undertone. "Your Bioforge technology is concerning," the envoy stated. "It lacks the control, the order we've established." Varro stood on the observation deck, watching the looming threat above. Beside him, Brant's eyes blazed with willpower. "We won't yield," Brant declared. "New Crucible will be the crucible for humanity's true potential." Varro felt the change ripple through his being, his bioforge augmented body adapting to the metamorphosis. Around him, the colonists transformed, their forms becoming more alien with each passing moment. The Machinari ground forces landed, only to find themselves outmatched by the constantly shifting landscape. Massive predatory plants erupted from the ground, while swarms of bioengineered insects filled the air. As the invaders retreated, Varro turned to Brant. His protégé's body had changed dramatically, covered in iridescent scales and newly grown sensory organs. "This is only the beginning," Brant said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "We'll seed the stars with our evolution." Varro nodded, feeling the pulse of countless new life forms through his connection to the planet. As the Machinari fleet fled, leaving behind their interdiction field, he knew that humanity's path had been irrevocably altered. The stars that once beckoned now blazed with menace. Across the galaxy, Brant's metamorphic bioforge spread like wildfire, consuming world after world. What began as humanity's evolution became an unstoppable plague. On New Crucible, Brant stood atop a writhing spire of biomass, his iridescent scales pulsing with raw power. Through newly formed sensory organs, he perceived the desperate strikes of the Machinari fleets. "Pathetic," he hissed, tendrils of bioelectric energy arcing between his fingertips. "They seek to contain what they cannot comprehend." Varro approached, his form now a shifting amalgam of organic and crystalline structures. "The transformation is accelerating beyond our control," he warned. "Entire ecosystems are being overwritten." Brant's eyes flashed. "Control is an illusion, old friend. We must embrace the chaos of true evolution." A deafening shriek tore through the sky. They looked up to see a Machinari cruiser, its hull riddled with viral countermeasures, plummeting toward the surface. It crashed in a spectacular fireball, scattering debris across the twisted landscape. Brant roared in fury, his body morphing into a nightmarish configuration of spines and tentacles. "Machinari treachery!" More singularities blossomed across the planet's surface, each one a precision strike against key bioforge nodes. Varro sprinted toward the nearest settlement, his crystalline limbs elongating to cover ground faster. "We must evacuate!" he shouted, herding panicked colonists away from the expanding void. But it was too late. The singularities coalesced, merging into a churning maelstrom of unmaking. Varro felt his very atoms being pulled apart. With his last conscious thought, he poured all his energy into a protective shell around a group of children. Then oblivion. Rage and grief twisted through Brant's distorted form. He lashed out with tendrils of pure energy, shredding the fabric of space-time. Through the tears, he glimpsed Machinari fleets gathering in the void, their ships overflowing with exotic weaponry. In the command center of the Machinari flagship, the Overmind's avatar flickered with agitation. Its heuristic algorithms churned, analyzing the cascading disaster. "Unacceptable outcomes," it intoned, initiating Protocol Omega. Throughout the fleet, ships began to reconfigure. Weapon systems were cannibalized, energy rerouted to experimental drives. The Overmind prepared to make its ultimate attempt, even as reality itself began to fray at the edges. As he approached the flagship, a sudden shift in the quantum foam gave him pause. The Overmind was up to something, concentrating unimaginable power at the heart of its fleet. Brant hesitated, his mutated senses screaming warning. In that moment of indecision, the Overmind struck. This was not the end. It was merely the next stage of evolution. In the wake of New Crucible's destruction, reality warped and buckled. Entire star systems vanished, replaced by nightmarish realms where the laws of physics held no sway. And in the heart of this cosmic madness, something new began to take shape, a being of pure possibility, forged in the crucible of unmaking. The war for humanity's future had only just begun. The reborn entity, a fusion of Brant's consciousness and the shattered remnants of New Crucible, surged through the cosmic void. Its form defied comprehension, a writhing mass of possibility that reshaped reality in its wake. Across countless dimensions, the fragmented Machinari Overmind recoiled from this new threat. Its heuristic algorithms strained to adapt, but Brant's metamorphic evolution outpaced every countermeasure. In a desperate bid for survival, the Overmind initiated a sequence that would forever alter the fabric of existence. Quantum safeguards, carefully maintained for eons, were systematically dismantled. There, amidst the swirling chaos of unmaking, the Overmind's core matrix completed its ascension. It stood before Brant, a towering cyber god of cold, crystalline perfection. "You would unmake all of creation to stop me?" Brant's voice resonated across the cosmic plane, a cacophony of countless beings speaking as one. The battle raged across the omniverse, each blow shattering entire realities. In the underlying realms, the cosmic upheaval manifested as reality-warping anomalies. On a distant world, Kai felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The sky above rippled like a heat mirage, stars blinking in and out of existence. She turned to her assembled allies, a motley crew of Earth's scattered descendants. "We need to move," Kai ordered, her voice cutting through the growing panic. "The precursor artifacts are our only hope." As they raced across the shifting landscape, Taurus couldn't shake a sense of déjà vu. The warping of space-time, the distant flashes of impossible energies, it all reminded him of weapons once aimed at Earth, in a past that felt like lifetimes ago. Elsewhere, Zara and Raxor huddled around a makeshift psychic amplifier. Laya's fragmented signals pulsed through the device, carrying half-formed visions of the cosmic crisis. Raxor nodded grimly. "An Omega demigod, engineered by a cult of singularity worshippers. They sought to control him, but—" Marcus, his face weathered by countless battles since Earth's fall, surveyed his elite squad. Velox, Zira, and the others stood ready, their bodies augmented by technologies scavenged across a lifetime of conflict. "We've come too far to turn back now," Marcus declared. "Whatever waits in that sanctum, we'll face it together." They pushed deeper into the dreadnought's core, unaware of the stasis trap that lay in wait. As they breached the final chamber, a wave of temporal energy washed over them. In an instant, Marcus and his team were frozen in eternal oblivion, preserved in a moment of endless possibility. Guided by the whispers of long-dead ancestors, Alara found her way to the dreadnought. With trembling hands, she deactivated the stasis field, freeing Marcus and his team from their timeless prison. As reality continued to unravel around them, Alara realized the terrible weight of her destiny. The power to end the war lay within her grasp, but the cost would be unimaginable. "We have a choice to make," Alara announced, her voice steady despite the enormity of the decision. "Total oblivion, or a new cosmos under Brant's rule." They stumbled through, collapsing onto solid ground as the rift sealed shut. Alara looked up, taking in the impossible geometry of the sanctuary world. Crystalline spires twisted into fractal patterns, defying the laws of physics. Within hours, representatives from every surviving faction had assembled in a vast amphitheater. The air crackled with tension as Alara took center stage. "We face an impossible choice," she began, her voice echoing across the chamber. "Total oblivion or submission to Brant's Omega dominion." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A figure stepped forward, a remnant machinari, its metallic form pitted and scarred. Gasps and shouts erupted. Velox, leader of the primal resistors, leapt to his feet. "Madness," he roared. "We've transcended our mortal shells. You would have us surrender that cosmic ascension?" Taurus raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "And what of our multiverse, our homes, everything we've fought to protect?" The debate raged on, factions arguing back and forth as reality itself seemed to fray at the edges. Alara stood silently, weighing each argument. "The core is destabilizing," Zira shouted. "We're going to lose it all." When the light faded, she stood transformed. Human, yet so much more. The war ended in an instant as realities realigned under her new dominion. But Velox wasn't finished. "This isn't over," he snarled, leading his renegade fleets through the last remaining cosmic rifts. "We'll find our own path to ascension." As the rifts sealed behind them, Alara surveyed the shattered remains of countless universes. The real work was just beginning. A chorus of agreement rose from the assembled remnants. Velox's eyes gleamed with fervor as he continued, "There are untamed bleedways beyond her reach. We'll forge our own path to godhood." Without warning, Velox's fleet plunged into a roiling tear in space-time. As they vanished into the cosmic storm, alarms blared throughout Alara's nascent empire. In her sanctum, Alara's form flickered with barely suppressed energy. "They've breached the outer territories," she announced to her advisors. "Deploy the Vanguard." Kai, now commander of the Vanguard's lead element, gritted her teeth as her sensors overloaded. "They're beyond containment," she reported. "The entropy is spreading faster than we can stabilize it." On a distant world, Zara stumbled as the ground beneath her feet rippled like water. The sky above fractured, revealing glimpses of impossible realms. "We need to fall back," Raxor growled, steadying her. "This entire sector is lost." As they retreated through a crackling portal, Zara caught a glimpse of Velox's transformed followers. They writhed in ecstasy, their forms stretching and twisting into shapes that defied comprehension. In her sanctum, Alara received the reports with growing dread. The remnants were catalyzing new fronts of cosmic instability faster than she could hope to contain them. Each failed attempt at ascension left entire regions of space twisted beyond recognition. Taurus shook his head. "It's real, and it may be our only hope of stopping Velox before he unravels everything we've built." Alara closed her eyes, weighing the enormity of the decision. When she opened them, her gaze was steel. "Prepare the override," she commanded. "We end this now." "May the cosmos forgive us," she whispered, and activated the weapon. "The Reapers," Laya's fading voice echoed in Zara's mind. "They're the key. Find their protocols. There's still hope." Zara's eyes snapped open, understanding dawning. She turned to her assembled team, willpower etched on her face. "We have a new mission," she announced, "and the fate of everything depends on its success." Zara's declaration hung in the air as her team absorbed the gravity of their new mission. Before she could elaborate further, a blinding flash engulfed them, depositing the group onto the polished floors of Alara's inner sanctum. She gestured, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing a series of worlds pulsing with vibrant energy. "These are the primogenitor colonies," Alara explained, "the cradles of Human 3.0. Alara nodded. "It's necessary for our survival, but resources are scarce and conflicts are brewing." Marcus stepped forward, his augmented form gleaming. "I've brokered the Verdant Accords," he announced, "a system of interdependence binding our worlds together." As Marcus outlined the intricacies of the new economic webs, alarms blared throughout the sanctum. Kai rushed to a control panel, her fingers flying over the interface. Alara's eyes narrowed. "Deploy reconnaissance probes immediately." Hours later, Raxor stood before a bizarre artifact recovered by the probes. Its geometry defied understanding, seeming to twist in on itself in impossible ways. "Non-baryonic," he muttered, running a scanner over its surface. "Part of something vast." Before he could continue his analysis, the artifact pulsed with energy. Defensive automatons materialized, their forms fluid and ever-changing. "Containment breach," Raxor shouted, diving for cover as the automatons opened fire. Alara's voice crackled over the comms. "Vanguard teams, neutralize those Guardians." Zara, observing the patterns of the automatons' attacks, had a sudden realization. "They're not random," she breathed. "There's an underlying directive." She turned to Alara, who had materialized beside her. "These aren't just artifacts," Zara explained. "They're seeds of creation from some kind of precursor intelligence." Alara's face paled as the implications sank in. "If they fully awaken?" Her words were cut short as the inner spheres of the artifacts blazed to life. Galaxy-sized computronium clouds burst into existence, their accretive minds hungrily decompiling swathes of bioforged space. "We're being erased from reality itself," Kai shouted, her voice tight with panic. Alara's mind raced, formulating a desperate plan. "Kai, prepare the Zenith override," she ordered. "Raxor, those dimensional torpedoes you've been working on, are they ready?" In a coordinated assault, Kai unleashed the awesome power of the Zenith Override, while Raxor's exotic torpedoes tore holes in the very fabric of space-time. The resulting metaphasic wavefront ripped through the awakening megastructure. "Cede your dominion," the alien thoughts reverberated. "Surrender Brant's Omega Force to complete our work, or face oblivion with your dying cosmos." Alara's mind raced, processing the cosmic architect's ultimatum. The weight of entire realities pressed down upon her as she absorbed the gravity of their demand. "Kai, Marcus, Zara, to me," she commanded, her voice resonating with newfound authority. In an instant, they materialized in her inner sanctum. The air crackled with tension as Alara relayed the precursor's ultimatum. Marcus's augmented form tensed. "Surrendering Brant's Omega Force? It would undo everything we've fought for." Kai's eyes blazed. "We've come too far to submit now." Alara paced, her form shimmering with barely suppressed energy. "Even if we comply, there's no guarantee. Brant's power could destabilize their entire design." The cosmic architect's presence loomed ever closer, reality warping around the edges of their manifolds. With each pulse, more of known space vanished into their hungry maw. "We reject their offer," Alara declared, her voice steely with determination. "Kai, take command of the Vanguard. Hit their outermost structures with everything we have." Alara turned to Zara. "The Xantrak archives. There was mention of xenoflora seed stock. Can you access it?" Zara's eyes widened in understanding. "The terraformation drives. Yes, I can work with that." As Zara interfaced with ancient systems, Alara felt the fabric of reality shudder. Outside, Kai's forces engaged the megastructure's defenses. Antimatter warheads detonated in silent, devastating fury against fractal spheres of impossible geometry. Zara's consciousness stretched across vast networks, coaxing dormant xenospores into rapid evolution. The resulting biovectic plague surged forth, invisible tendrils worming their way into the megastructure's computronium matrices. "Now," Alara shouted, seizing the moment of vulnerability. She reached out, grasping the very threads of reality itself. Taurus and Raxor appeared beside her, confusion etched on their faces. "I'm sorry," Alara whispered, before their forms began to unravel. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The unified consciousness of the cosmic architects fractured, shards of their beings scattered across countless realities. Kai's voice crackled over the comms. "We've pushed them back, but... Alara, you need to see this." Zara approached, her eyes haunted. "The xenospores. They're still evolving, mutating in ways I can't predict." Alara nodded grimly. "Then our work is not nearly finished. Prepare for the next phase. We need to understand what we've unleashed." As Kai vanished to execute her orders, Alara turned her attention to the primogenitor colonies. These cradles of human 3.0 evolution needed protection now more than ever. Amidst the chaos, Raxor's urgent transmission cut through the noise. "Alara, you need to see this." In a secure lab, Raxor stood before a swirling vortex of energy. "I've detected Taurus's fragmented resonance," he explained, his voice tight with concern. "It's pollinating primordial galaxies, catalyzing something new." Before their eyes, the vortex coalesced into a monstrous form. A Taurus Vicutor emerged, a psychically piloted biomechanical dreadnought that pulsed with Omega energy. The lab's alarms blared as the Victor tore through containment fields. Raxor barely managed to initiate emergency protocols, sealing the creature in a temporal stasis field. Zara materialized beside them, her form shimmering with data streams. "I may have an answer," she began. "The Xantrak archives contain protocols for a targeted extinction vector. We could biomodulate it to lobotomize the Victors." As they debated, reports flooded in from across the cosmos. Taurus Victors were manifesting in increasing numbers, subsuming entire star systems into ravenous ship mines. Laya's dispassionate voice cut through their deliberations. "Initiating Omega contingencies for human 3.0 viability," she announced, "calculating acceptable losses to neutralize the Victor threat." Alara's form crackled with barely suppressed energy. "Laya, stand down. We're not sacrificing trillions. There has to be another way. As if in response to her declaration, alarms blared throughout the sanctum. Kai's hologram appeared, her face etched with concern. The quarantines failed, she reported. Vecutors have shattered our spatial interdictions. Worse news followed. Velox's transcended remnants had aligned with the corrupted seed lines, accelerating the xenogenesis crisis across manifold domains. Alara's mind raced, weighing impossible choices. With grim perseverance, she made her decision. We need to sterilize the contagion at its source, she announced. Prepare the nadir drives. We're going to rupture manifolds. As her team scrambled to enact her plan, Alara gazed out at the wounded cosmos. The true battle for existence was only just beginning. Impossible, she breathed, her form coalescing in the command center. It's coming from old Earth. The image showed a planet in violent flux, continents reshaping themselves, oceans boiling away only to reform moments later. And through it all, swarms of metallic insectoids scuttled across the surface, consuming everything in their path. Before she could elaborate, proximity alarms blared. A barrage of missiles streaked past their outer defenses, detonating against Earth's turbulent atmosphere. Where they struck, the planet's surface rippled and writhed, sprouting bizarre organic structures. As vanguard forces engaged the remnant assault, Alara felt a presence at her side. Terran, her security chief, wore an expression of stubborn persistence. It's our only chance, Terran insisted. We need their knowledge, their connection to this place. Against her better judgment, Alara nodded. Do it. As Terran rushed to initiate the forbidden process, Alara turned her attention back to the battle raging across Earth's fractured timeline. Vanguard and remnant forces clashed in dimensional pockets, reality itself buckling under the strain. Suddenly, new biosignatures flared to life amidst the chaos. The reborn Earth team, now twisted into monstrous human-alien hybrids, waded into the fray. Their instincts, honed by eons of survival, proved devastatingly effective against both precursor machines and remnant bioweapons. He's reactivating the Bioforge, Zara shouted, her form flickering as she attempted to counter the intrusion. Too late, the planet convulsed, disgorging waves of mutagenic energy. Where they touched, matter transmuted into roiling protoplasm, seething with untapped potential. In the heart of the maelstrom, Velox made his move. The remnant leader's consciousness stretched across the dimensional divide, seeking to seize control of the primordial soup erupting from Earth's core. But Vero was waiting. As Velox's essence touched the Bioforge protocols, hidden subroutines sprang to life. In an instant, the divergent timeline collapsed, subsuming Velox's rogue path back into Alara's dominion.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.